Planning Board meeting on March 16th, 2026. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I hereby announce that this meeting is being held in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Open Public Meeting Act. Proper notice of meeting dates has been given to the Morris Newsbee and the Morris County Daily Record and posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Notice to members of the planning board and borough staff, any use of electronic devices during this meeting shall be used solely for the purpose of board business. Thank you. Karen, roll call.
Mr. Wolf? Mr. Malpier?
Here.
Mr. Bezel?
Here.
Mrs. Deckert?
Present.
Mr. Cianciata?
Here.
Mr. Houston?
Here.
Mayor Carr?
Present.
Mrs. McCluskey?
Here.
And Mr. Babacchio.
Present.
For the record, Mr. Bruin, board attorney, and Mr. Ridenborough, engineer, are present.
Okay. First item on our agenda tonight is the approval of meeting minutes from February 9th, 2026. Each of the board members received a copy. Does anybody have any corrections or comments? Okay.
I have a correction. Karen, it looks like the page numbering,
It was a difficult thing for me. The page numbers are in the book, but the numbers are not accurate here, okay? The other pages, there was a mistake on them, so I just crossed them out and they put in a book.
okay, so I'm just gonna put it on record that it looks like in the copies we have missing pages. Well, it went from number 458 and then skipped to 463, so 459 through 462 were not in there, and
Right.
464.
Right.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else?
Any,
Just one correction on my end, page 455. There's questions from the board. Mr. Malpier asked to confirm there's a net loss of 12 trees. I think that was Mr. Wolf.
Okay, sir, just tell me where it is in here.
Right at the top of 455, just under questions from the board, the first
Oh,
question.
Mr. Matt, confirm that there is a net loss of 12 trees.
That was Mr. Wolf.
Okay, thank you. Can I
That's
have
it?
a motion?
That's all I got.
yeah, anybody else? Okay, with the stated corrections, can I have a motion to approve these minutes?
So motion.
Second?
Second.
Karen, roll call?
Okay. Mr. Malpier?
Yes.
Mr. Bezel?
Yes.
Mrs. Deckert?
Yes.
Mr. Cianciata?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mayor Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey?
I approve except for that portion of the minutes for the application PB 2-25, SS&S, for which I abstained from the meeting.
Okay. All right, I know that it was Mrs. Deckert, but who was the? Thank you. Okay. All right,
And Karen, I abstain.
and you abstain.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Okay. Okay, second item is the approval of meeting minutes for March 3rd, 2026. Again, the board members have copies. Anybody have any comments or corrections?
I have correction on the, I'm not sure what page it is, 780.
Excuse me?
Mr. Buzak, down the large paragraph, B-U-Z-A-K. And on the next page, in the last paragraph, it said this was approved by the program judge. Fair Housing Center, Fair Share Housing Center.
Anyone else? Karen, you have that? You have
Yeah,
those?
I'll speak, okay, yes.
Okay, so with the correction, can I have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
roll call.
Okay. Mr. Melchior,
Yes.
Mr. Bezel,
Yes.
Mrs. Deckert,
Yes.
Mrs. Biassiata,
Yes.
Mr. Houston.
Yes.
Mayor Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey.
Yes.
And Mr. Babaki.
Yes. Okay, next item on the agenda are comments from the public. This is specifically for matters that are not on tonight's agenda. Public comment should be limited to one comment of no more than 5 minutes per person. Again, this request is only to provide opportunity for everyone to speak. Okay, close that portion of the agenda. Committee reports, minor site plan committee, Mr. Bezel, any updates? No. And I know for the master plan review committee, there are no updates to my knowledge. All right, I'll close that portion of the agenda. Correspondence and bills. Karen, did we get any correspondence for tonight?
No correspondence.
Okay, and we do have a few bills.
We do. Looks like we've got 4 bills to go through tonight. First one, purchase order number 202-60512, dated March 12th, 2026. This is for legal services from Mariziti Falcon LLP. The amount of $1,417.50. General legal services. Do we go one by one?
Yeah, go
Okay.
through. Go
So
through.
next, we got purchase order number 202-60350, dated February 17th, 2026. Also from Mariziti Falcon LLP. Total amount $945, general legal services. Next one, purchase order number 202-60349, dated February 17th, 2026. Mariziti Falcon LLP. This is McDonald's litigation as the description, and the amount is $5,619.87. Last one here, purchase order number 202-60452, March 6th, 2026. This is Anderson and Densler. Description is engineering services in the amount of $96.70. Do we have any questions or a motion to approve these?
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Karen, roll call?
Okay. Mr. Melchior,
Yes.
Mr. Bezel,
Yes.
Mrs. Deckert,
Yes.
Mr. Biassiata.
Yes.
Mr. Houston.
Yes.
Mayor Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey.
Yes.
And Mr. Babaki.
Yes.
So if I got that correct, it was Mr. Biassiata and Houston?
Mayor Carr.
Mayor Carr. Good, thank you so much.
Okay. Next on the agenda are our applications for tonight. First one is PB-2-25 SS&S, Block 41.02, Lot 39.01. The order of business tonight is to memorialize and adopt resolution 2609. Our professionals and each board member has received a copy for review. And at this time, I'll ask Mr. Brewer to read the resolution.
I've been given dispensation to start on the last whereas clause. Planning Board Resolution Number 26-09, resolution for preliminary and final site plan with variances. Planning Board, Borough of Morris Plains, application number PB2-25, applicant SS&S, premises Lot 41.02, Lot 39.01. Whereas, after carefully considering the evidence presented by the applicant, the board now makes the following factual findings and conclusions. 1, the applicant submitted and the board considered the following documents which were made part of of the application. A, application for development. B, checklists E and F. C, November 17, 2025, letter from Michael Castor, Esquire. D, November 14, 2025, letter from Bauman Consulting Group. E, application for tree removal. F, ownership disclosure statement. G, resolution number 8-87 dated 8/25/87. H, application addendum. I, certification of taxes paid. J, site plan, 13 sheets dated 11/14/2025, revised 11/17/2025, prepared by Bauman Consulting Group. K, architectural plans, 13 sheets dated 11/14/25, prepared by Studio 1200 LLC. 2, the board considered the following submittals from its consultants. A, reports of William Ryden, P.E. of Anderson and Denzler Associates, board engineer dated November 25, 2025, and January 7, 2026. And B, reports of Elizabeth Lahaney, AICP, PP, board planner dated December 16, 2025, January 13, 2026, and January 14, 2026. And 3, the following variances are sought as part of the application. A, section 13-5.2B 15.2, to permit a side yard setback of 16.6 feet, whereas 23.66 feet is required. B, section 13-5.2A 23.1, to permit building coverage of 10,166 square feet, whereas maximum building coverage of 6,406 square feet is permitted. C, section 13-5.2A 23.2, to permit 27,058 square feet of lot coverage, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 12,812 square feet is permitted. D, section 13-5.7A and 13-5.2B 15.3, to permit 24 parking spaces, whereas 41 are required. 4, the following design waivers are requested. A, 13-4.14B 1.18, street shade trees are not provided. B, 13.4.14C D.I, parking spaces do not comply with 10 by 20 foot standard. C, 13-4.14C G 4, providing area lighting is less than the required 1/2 foot candles. D, 13-4.14C G 5, light intensity at a residential property line exceeds the maximum level of 0.3 foot candles. E, enclosure of trash recycling dumpster will be a chain link fence, whereas masonry enclosure is required. 5, the board carefully considered the following testimony at the public hearing. A, applicant presented testimony of Eric Keller, P.E., P.P., who testified as to his credentials and was accepted as an expert in the fields of civil engineering and planning. B, Mr. Keller testified as to the existing conditions on the property and about Exhibit A1, an aerial depiction of the property dated 1/23/26. C, he testified that the proposed project will expand the existing building and add 6 new bedrooms. D, he testified that there is a letter of interpretation application pending before the NJDEP. However, regardless of the outcome, the proposed development is outside of the maximum 150-foot transition area. E, he testified the property is surrounded by borough and state-owned land. F, the property is in zone R2 and the application proposes a permitted use. G, the application is for a 1-story expansion for 6 bedrooms and support spaces along with 5 additional parking spaces. 2 existing spaces will be eliminated for a trash recycling enclosure. H, he testified that the proposed development will include improvements to the stormwater treatment, additional dry wells, and landscaping, and will include new LED outdoor light fixtures. I, the property is currently served by a pump station which services only this property, and it will remain in place. The applicant will let the board engineer know if a replacement pump is required. J, the application includes a new generator in a new location. K, the proposal includes a chain link fence with mesh covering around the dumpster whereas a masonry enclosure is required. L, new dry wells will receive water from the new roof area, and the rest of the stormwater treatment will remain the same. M, he testified the generator will be shielded by landscaping, which will also be added around portions of the perimeter of the property. The application includes the installation of a dog run and 6 new shade trees. N, the lighting will be on from dusk to dawn with no dimming, which is no change from current lighting. O, the applicant presented testimony of Nancy Dougherty, architect, who testified as to her credentials and was accepted as an expert in the field of architecture. P, Ms. Dougherty testified about the proposed floor plans of the building after the proposed construction. The generator is being moved, the basement is only for HVAC and laundry. There will be a crawl space under the new addition. Q, the generator will remain the same size, 150 kilowatts, and will comply with the decibel limit at the property line. R, she testified that the dog run will not be visible from most angles along the street, and there will be landscaping added to shield the air conditioning condensers. S, she testified that the ordinance provision regarding side yard setbacks is based on the highest part of the building. However, the side yard variance sought is in a relation to a portion of the building that is only 1 story high, so the mass of the building at the area of the variance is much lower. T, she testified that the dogs will always be with their owners in the dog run, and the storage in the garage will remain the same. U, she testified that 6 staff members will move to another location, while 2 new staff will assist the additional residents for a net decrease of 4 staff members. V, in response to questions from the board, she testified that there will be 2 accessible bedrooms, whereas only 1 is required. W, Mr. Keller testified about the variance relief requested. X, he testified there will be a net increase of 3 parking spaces. Y, he testified that the application and grant of the variances would further purposes A, C, and I of the purposes of planning. Z, he testified that there will be little to no negative impact from the side yard variance because it is calculated from the highest point of the house, while the actual variance is from a section that is only 1 story high. Additionally, the property adjacent to the impacted side yard is owned by the state and undeveloped. AA, he testified that there is no separate building coverage standard for a shelter, which is a permitted use, and the proposed 11.7% is very low for this type of use. BB, the impervious coverage variance is tied to the building coverage, and the existing already exceeds the permitted coverage. It is only 31.1% of the lot, which is low for this type of use, and is fully addressed by the addition of the dry well system. Double C, on the issue of parking, he testified this property was approved in the 1980s for only 18 spaces. The current proposal will actually decrease the deviation from what exists in the current development. There is a net loss of 4 employees who typically have cars, and the addition of units whose residents often do not have cars. DD, he testified that there are not currently any shade trees, and that the current parking spaces are 9 by 18, which is the same size as the proposed spaces. He further testified that the new LED lighting will result in a better aesthetic, and landscaping will alleviate any minor excess light at the property line. Mr. Lyden agreed with the testimony about parking stall count and parking space size. 6, with regard to applicant's request for variance relief, the board finds the following facts and conclusions. A, the applicant's requested variance from section 13-5.7A and 13-5.2B, 15.3, to permit 24 parking spaces, whereas 41 are required, results in improved zoning for the tract and will allow the applicant to adequately serve an underserved community. In addition, the board finds that the benefits of deviation from the parking requirements would substantially outweigh any detriment because the deviation will be decreased from the current conditions. Variance relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and with no impairment to the borough's zone plan and zoning ordinance. B, the applicants requested variance from section 13-5.2B, 15.2, to permit side yard setback of 16.6 feet, whereas 23.66 feet is required, results in improved zoning for the tract and will allow the applicant to adequately serve an underserved community. In addition, the board finds that the benefits of deviation from the side yard requirement would substantially outweigh any detriment. Various relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and with no impairment to the borough's zone plan and zoning ordinance. C, the applicants requested variances from section 13-5.2A, 23.1, and 23.2 to permit building coverage of 10,166 square feet, whereas a maximum of 6,406 square feet is permitted, and to permit lot coverage of 27,058 square feet, where a maximum of 12,812 is permitted, results in improved zoning for the tract and will allow the applicant to adequately serve an underserved community. In addition, the board finds that the benefits of deviation from the lot and building coverage requirement would substantially outweigh any detriment. Variance relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and with no impairment to the borough's zone plan and zoning ordinance. D, with respect to all design waivers set forth herein, the board finds that strict compliance with the design standards is impracticable and that the benefits of granting the waivers outweigh any detriments. 7, with respect to all requested variances, the board finds that the variances will not cause a substantial detriment to the surrounding property owners, as most of the property is bounded by borough and state-owned property and there is sufficient parking for the proposed use. 8, the board further finds that all of the requested variances will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan. The development as a whole is consistent with the zone plan for the area. The variances are not substantial deviations from the zone plan and result in a better zoning alternative for the property. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Planning Board of the Borough of Morris Plains in the County of Morris and State of New Jersey on this 16th day of March 2026 as follows. 1, preliminary and final site plan approval with variances and waiver relief and tree removal approval and soil movement removal are hereby granted as depicted on the aforesaid plans, subject to the conditions hereinafter set forth. 2, variance relief as set forth above for the aforementioned reasons as proposed in testimony hereby granted pursuant to NJSA 40:55D 70C2, subject to the conditions hereinafter set forth. 3, the board grants the application for tree removal pursuant to section 23A-2.2D of the revised ordinances of the Borough of Morris Plains and subject to final approval by the board engineer as set forth in the conditions hereafter. 4, the applicant shall comply with A, the January 7, 2026 report of the board engineer to his satisfaction, except as otherwise stated in testimony, with same to be confirmed in writing by the board engineer. B, the January 13, 2026 report of Elizabeth Laney, P.P., except as otherwise stated in testimony, with same to be confirmed by the board planner. 5, applicant may proceed prior to the receipt of its letter of interpretation determination, but will comply with all NJDEP permits. 6, applicant shall perform noise testing on the new generator to ensure compliance with noise standards 65 dBA for daytime and 50 dBA for nighttime in accordance with ordinance 4-2019. 7, if any of the individual findings, conclusions, or conditions as stated in this resolution are subsequently declared invalid, then the remaining findings and conclusions shall be deemed sufficient to support the decision of the board and the remaining conditions. 8, the board secretary shall provide a copy of this resolution to the borough attorney and to the construction official within 20 days of the date hereof. 9, this resolution shall take effect as provided by law.
Okay, I believe there was only one typo under 4A.
Yep.
You have that, right?
That knows that we will.
Space.
D spaces. Yep.
Okay, so with those two corrections, can I have a motion to approve resolution 26-09?
Motion to approve?
Okay, second.
Second.
Karen, roll call?
Okay. Mr. Malpia?
Yes.
Mr. Bezel?
Yes.
Mrs. Deckard?
Yes.
Mr. Cianciata?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mayor Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey?
Abstain?
And Mr. Pataglia.
Abstain. Okay, next item is PB-1-26, M&M at Morris Plains LLC. This is block 121, lot 1.02, 21B, 31A, 41D, 51C on Veterans Way. The order of business tonight is to memorialize and adopt Resolution 2610. Each of the professionals and the board members received a copy for review. At this time, I'll ask Mr. Brewer to read the resolution.
And just there are two changes from what you have. I had put the address as 200 Table Road. It's actually 2-5, 2, 3, 4, and 5 Veterans Way. That's in the top of the title as well as the first whereas clause, but that's the actual address. I'll say the reason for it, not an excuse. The reason that there were several different submissions, some of which still had Table Road, and some of which had Veterans. All to one, I apologize. That being said, I'll read the title and then go to the last whereas. Planning Board Resolution Number 26-10. Resolution granting amended preliminary and final site plan approval. Planning Board, Borough of Morris Plains, application number PB-01-26, applicant M&M at Morris Plains LLC, 2 through 5, 2-5 Veterans Way, Block 121, Lot 1.02, apartment buildings 1B, 1D, 1A, and 1C. Going, again, on the first whereas, it's changed to Veterans Way. To the last whereas at the bottom. Whereas, after carefully considering the evidence, the board now makes the following factual findings and conclusions. 1, the applicant now seeks amended preliminary and final site plan approval in order to modify buildings 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D to modify the exterior building facades, amenity areas, and unit and floor plans. 2, the applicant submitted and the board considered the following documents which were made part of the application. A, application for development. B, certification of taxes. C, checklist E, site plan dated 1/12/26. D, ownership disclosure list. E, building floor plans and elevations dated January 9, 2026, prepared by Jarmel Keisel Architects. 3, the board considered the following submittals from its consultants. A, report of William Ryden, P.E., and Anderson and Densler Associates, board engineer dated January 22nd, 2026. And 4, the board carefully considered the following testimony at the public hearings. 5, applicant produced Carolina Todkanowicz, architect, who was sworn and accepted as an expert in the field of architecture and testified to the changes to be made to the previously approved plans. 6, Ms. Todkanowicz testified that the applicant proposes changes to the building facade and some modifications to the interior layout of the apartments and the amenity space. 7, she testified that the increase in square footage is due to the fact that they propose to use brick, which is a thicker material, and the measurement of square footage is done to the exterior of the walls. 8, there are no changes to the unit counts, distribution, unit mix, affordable or market rate units. 9, Ms. Todkanowicz provided a representative example of the red brick proposed to be used for examination by the board. 10, Ms. Todkanowicz testified that an additional change was to the rail design at the balconies and roof level. The rails will now be black horizontal bar guardrails to match the windows. 11, she testified about the minor changes to layout of the interior of the apartments, including increased turning spaces to comply with the ADA, changing dens to laundry rooms, and slightly increasing the bathroom sizes. All changes were to the interior of the units. 12, she testified that the changes to the amenity space largely included moving the co-work space from the main lobby to a more private area. 13, in response to questions, she testified that the addition of the brick facade on the upper floors does not result in the building being any closer to Tabor Road because the previous approval had provided an offset in facade thickness so that when amended, the exterior facade for all floors will be even with no protrusion. 14, in response to questions from the board, she acknowledged a typographical error in the table indicating bedroom unit count and agreed the plans will be changed so the table matches the actual bedroom unit count. 15, no variances were sought or required as part of the application. Now therefore be it resolved by the Planning Board of the Borough of Morris Plains in the County of Morris and State of New Jersey on this 16th day of March 2026 as follows. 1, Amended preliminary and final site plan approval as set forth on the submitted plans is hereby granted to accommodate the following changes. A, modify buildings 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D to change the exterior facade, amend interior unit layouts, amend layout of amenity space, and related improvements as set forth in the submitted plans. 2, the approval and all elements hereof are expressly subject to the following conditions. A, the applicant shall be bound by and comply with all the representations made by the applicant and the applicant's witnesses and professionals before the board, and the same are incorporated herein and are representations upon which this board has relied in granting the approval set forth herein, and shall be enforceable against the applicant and any developer of a particular section or parcel as if those representations were made conditions of this approval. B, the applicant shall comply with the January 22nd, 2026 report of the board engineer prior to signing the site plan and building permit. C, the applicant shall revise the plans to provide the correct number of bedrooms and unit counts, subject to the review and approval in writing of the board engineer prior to signing the site plan and building permit. 3, the applicant shall make all revisions as discussed in the public hearing. 4, all conditions contained in the approvals previously granted by resolution of the board that have not been expressly modified by this resolution shall remain in full force and effect, and applicant shall be required to comply with all such conditions. 5, the board secretary shall provide a copy of this resolution to the borough attorney and to the construction official within 20 days of the date hereof. 6, this resolution shall take effect as provided by law.
Okay, I move that we approve the resolution with the corrections.
Okay, and the corrections are the address and line number 12, I believe there are some typos. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Karen, roll call.
Okay, Mr. Lampier,
Yes.
Mr. Bezel,
Yes.
Mrs. Decker,
Yes.
Mrs. Biassiata,
Yes.
Mr. Houston,
Yes.
Mayor Carr,
Yes.
Mrs. McCluskey,
Yes.
and Mr. Cavaglia.
Abstain. Have all that, Karen?
Yeah,
Good?
but Mr. Brewer will send me corrected copies tomorrow
Above.
morning? Okay, good.
Okay. Moving on to old business. Tonight, we will talk about the revised application process. Before we start, I want to mention that Mr. Dave Schultz is here from the zoning board. He has been part of the committee working on this revised checklist. Thanks for coming. So, as far as starting this off, my thought was to get right into the two emails that were sent today. One from Ms. McCluskey and the other from Mr. Wolf, who's not here. Ms. McCluskey, do you want to take us through your email, or do you want me to run through each item? Because I'd like to go through each item tonight.
Okay, so, number one, the document should be checklist of requirements for submission. Okay, that's just a little, correction there. We all agreed that there would be a glossary attached to each application. I think we all agreed that, and you said that was gonna happen, and we don't see that. Definitely, the signatures and the certifications must be dated and notarized. I have no idea why that was omitted. Photographs of the properties within 200 feet should be required for variances and subdivisions. I don't know that we ever heard of any comments from Karen. We never heard any comments from Liz. Another thing that should be included, required to be included, is the copy of the proposed legal notice. A certification that the application is the owner and has given consent to the applicant to file on the owner's behalf. Again, the signatures should be notarized. The location, size, and nature of all existing and proposed right-of-way easements and other lands, if any, to be dedicated to the borough, and I added or others. There's something in a couple of them that says whatever public sewer, yes or no is referenced. We don't allow properties not to have, city sewers, okay? So that's gotta be changed, it's just got to be a certification that the property is serviced by public water and sewer. There should be a landscape plan, I think that, that actually was included, but I'm not sure. Architectural elevations and floor plans should specify all elevations and floor plans for all floors. And then the next one is the, location, type, and size of electric, telephone cable, blah, blah, blah. It should include water mains. And I also suggest that the applicant list the professionals that will appear on his behalf.
Okay, so let's stop there. And I would like to go back to number one and work down through them. So you're saying the document should read checklists of requirements for submission of.
Right.
And if I'm looking at the applications that we put together, do you mean of subdivision and site plan
Yeah, for
review?
all of them. It's a checklist of requirements.
Right, so instead of saying application for, it should be checklist of requirements for submission of,
Right.
and then subdivision and site plan review,
Yeah.
et cetera. Okay. I guess,
I mean, all the words are there,
It's,
checklist, submission, requirements, subject, they're all there, so, I don't care if you wanna change the order of the words, that's fine.
okay, so there's no, that's not gonna cause any confusion, that, if anything, maybe clarifies it.
I don't know that it does, but like I said, if you wanna change it,
Okay. Okay. As far as the glossary to be attached to each application, I mean, do we have a glossary today? Is there a glossary
But I
today?
think,
Yeah, I think there is a glossary.
so I think this was brought up, this is one of mine at the very beginning, just because you're gonna have, residents that do fill this out a lot of times.
Jason, you have to talk into it.
Sometimes it's not professionals that fill that out, right? So sometimes it is just a homeowner resident, So I think a glossary, would be an excellent thing to have in here, probably a necessity to have in here, if you're gonna do something like this.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I guess my question is that part of the actual application? Is it part of the application
Whether you
today?
hand it out
or-
separately, or whether you put it in here.
It
You know,
should be a
that's
part of
what-
the application, yeah.
If it's part of a package that you hand out to somebody applying for something, then you put it in the package. If you just hand them this one sheet of paper, then you attach it to the one sheet of paper.
Yeah, I almost see it as a separate document, but, I mean, again, I'm gonna defer
Yeah, it would be
to
a
the-
separate document, going over some of the definitions of the technical terms in the application.
But if you have it as a separate document on that application, you should say attachments so that they know that that attachment is there, okay? And there may be other attachments.
Okay. Mr. Ryden, Mr. Schultz, any comments to that?
Well, from the inception, we always agreed that we would have some sort of an instruction packet with terms
Right.
defined, with procedures defined, so that's yet to be developed.
And I think that, I really think in part of in our code, that it's, a lot of the terms are included, a glossary of terms and things like that. So it wouldn't be hard to put that together.
Okay. Any board have any other comments?
I think also if you're gonna have a glossary defining some terms in the document itself, it should be part of the document. Just by connection, I mean, the fact that you're defining what's in the document, therefore it has to be part of the document.
Yeah, I agree. People don't know what they don't know, so they won't
Yeah.
know to ask for it. Might as well just.
Yeah, it's part of the document, really.
And one other thing, and I forgot to put it down here, I have so many papers here, I think we all do. You should also, have, with this explanation, some type of, explanation about timetables. Okay? Now, we don't have to have, it to be too, detailed, but just to give the people an idea that when you submit this, the board has this many days to act on it. And when they have to get their papers in. And that type of thing, so everybody knows. Do the attorneys know? Probably they do, but it may be different in before each board.
Okay, so, I mean, to me, it sounds like there's two things, right? It's the checklist itself, and then it's the process associated with filling out the checklist and maybe obtaining all the information within. And that's either by attachments, right, or it's embedded within the application. So that's, I guess, what we have to continue to look at and figure out. mean,
I
that's-
agree with
maybe-
Mr. Malpier, though, it ought to be part of the whole thing. Put it together, everybody's got the whole thing.
I think people just, they don't know what they don't know until they go through the process, so.
Yeah, and if they don't find an attachment, they don't know, because it didn't, it wasn't attached.
Okay, fair, okay. Any other comments on that one? Okay, the signatures and certifications must be dated and notarized in today's process. Are they dated and notarized across the
They are.
board?
They are.
Okay, was there, Mr. Ryden or Mr. Schultz, or even Mr. Houston, was there a reason why we took that out, or would we, I don't know.
I defer to the attorneys, Sullivan
Yeah.
and Mr. Brewer.
Strange enough, I think it's a very good idea to have notarized, and I think by and large, most of the time, it's irrelevant, but every once in a while, you have someone who is connected to the property and doesn't own it, or is doing something, and I think it's a good idea to have. Most of the time, I think it'd be completely irrelevant, sometimes it'd be very important just to make sure that all the right people are really signing it, and either a notary or an attorney usually will make sure of that.
Okay, good, thank you. Number 4, photographs of properties within 200 feet should be required for variances and subdivisions. So today, is that currently part of the application process? I thought that came later.
I think it's further out, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Today's
No,
five.
It's 500, I thought.
Oh, it could be 500.
Right, so routinely, so one of the conversations on reducing it to 200 feet was routinely, Board of Adjustment was granting waivers in the completeness process to go from 500 to 200. So when you do it for every time, right, you raise the question on should it be 200?
Yeah, just so the minutes reflect, they might anyway, just state your name and
Oh, yeah.
that by less than.
Dave
You're not
Schultz-
under oath, you don't have to tell the truth, but you.
Dave always tells the truth.
Dave Schultz, 15 Academy Road, Morris Plains, New Jersey, currently Vice Chair Board of Adjustment, and for a couple of years was Chair of the Board of Adjustment. The thought was 200 feet would be sufficient, also considering that, hopefully members of, I'm speaking only for the Board of Adjustment, hopefully members of the board are going out to see the site as part of their due diligence. So 200 feet seemed reasonable.
Yeah.
I think, I agree, 200 feet, however, if, we decide when we're doing completeness that 500 feet might be appropriate, we can do that.
Always ask for more, right?
We can, yeah.
So what we were thinking on completeness is that at any point you can, during testimony, once the door is open to the hearing, the board can always ask for more. And during
Right.
completeness review can state, for the purposes of completeness, we will deem this complete with this. However, you are forewarned that during testimony, we expect to hear X. So that's where we were thinking it would get covered,
Yeah.
right?
Sure,
Could be,
or have more photographs or whatever, depending on the application, yeah.
Bill, you had something to.
No, I think the point here is we don't have any requirement for photographs in any of these yet. So it's not a matter of the 200 feet or not. We didn't include photographs in the requested documentation. That's something that.
But we have been requiring them when we have had subdivisions, before the planning board. And that has been up to
I know it was
Liz.
required as part of the variance application. I can't say, I can't recall if it was part of the subdivision application.
Well, we did it when we did the subdivision on, Mountain Way and the other one over on Central Avenue.
Well, yeah, and again, often the applicants will bring those in any event, whether you ask for them or not. That's part of their testimony and their proofs for variances and all those things, so. But we can ask for them here. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Sharon? try not to put
Just
you out.
before Karen, I know we're kind of talking about this, was there, I did not, I saw that there's stuff in here for front yard setbacks, but a lot of times when I brought this up,
Jason talking to the.
a lot of times, you know, you have, two front yard setbacks, right, or two side yards. But I didn't see that defined in this document, right, so,
Well, that's defined in the ordinance, the two front yards, side, all that, you know, you can't, I don't think you need to repeat all the ordinance in these applications. That's, you know, the applicant has to do some due diligence and go through, and the professionals that they use have to do that, so.
Probably
I
a
think that's-
glossary,
In
if
the-
front
Yeah,
yard,
maybe.
because on the corner lots.
Yeah.
That's the
Yes.
word, and that'll help everybody on corner lots.
that's probably
Big word
better,
adjustment.
yeah. Yep. So that'll go in the glossary. Yeah, that's better off.
Help people understand why they're being hit with two
It's
front.
already in the definition of terms in the ordinance.
Oh, yeah, it should, probably, that glossary can probably just, several of those just be taken from the ordinance, but it helps people out.
Yep.
Okay. Karen, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Okay, my question is, the application isn't changing, am I correct? This is a checklist, not an
That was the
application.
application, brand new
Yeah.
application.
It comes with an application and a checklist, so the
Yeah.
application is not changing.
Yes, it is changing, 100%.
Okay, it is, all right. My question about the glossary is that anyone that's going to any board has to go to the zoning officer. The zoning officer tells them what board to go to and explains what he is going to the board for. So I don't know exactly why that is totally necessary, okay?
Well, I think the glossary also tells you about each one of these, you know, side yard setback and.
Well, that
and-
he'll tell them, because you see, it's side yard setback.
He will tell them, but it's good to have it on the application.
So the thought on having, we didn't call it glossary, we called it, you know, instruction, which would include key terms. And the intent, when we spoke about it, was really, you know, due respect to humans, right? How can you make this clear without talking to people? Right, like, to get your best first start, right? If you go online, you pick up a package from the secretary's office, like, you look at this thing, and for the greatest degree possible, it's self-explanatory. And you don't have to talk to them, you don't have to talk to them, you don't have to talk to, and so that was to the greatest degree possible. I don't think we'll ever get everybody all the time.
But they do have to get the letter from the zoning officer to go to the board. That's-
Understood, and this wasn't changing the zoning officer's review process at all.
That's
Right, okay.
standard operation.
Right.
And if you go in and talk to the zoning officer and if it were me, I'd come out of there and say, wait, what did he say about that? You know, so I think this is very helpful.
Okay, all right, because usually, I will be honest, they make an appointment, they come in and talk to the zoning officer, then he looks at the zoning, you know, everything, and he discusses it in length with them, but I understand. Okay, and,
So, hang on, Karen, hang on. So what's the action on this one? Nothing, right?
okay. I think it's a little busy too, I wish there was a little more space involved, you know, but that's me, all right? And the one thing that I don't understand, I don't really feel in me that you need that 200 list for completeness. The 200 list is for the public hearing. And a lot of times, if they're not coming to the board, say they, like here, we have a couple that are at the Board of Adjustment, that it may be over the time and they're gonna have to get another list. So I feel the list of the 200, you know, within the 200 would be in the checklist, but said for the public hearing.
Are you talking about the 200-foot notification, the legal notification?
No, yes,
List
No,
of property owners,
that's
list of
set
property
by
owners.
the municipal land use law, right?
Yeah.
That's not
So your question
subject to
is-
our change.
The 200-foot that they've been talking about just right here, that pictures, not the name of property owners in 200 feet.
I'm talking, well, I think it's not in there, the 200 list, it's in there.
No, you're talking about two different things. One
I'm
is just,
talking about that list.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the
you're
200
talking about the
list.
200-foot notice list, is that?
Yes,
Right.
and I feel that should be in there. It should be part of the checklist, but it should be for the public hearing.
It is.
Oh, no, but does it say public hearing? You don't have to have the list for the completeness. That's what I'm saying, because
Well,
in my
that one we do.
situation
I
is,
think we do.
So-
okay, well,
So I would, as chair, I would prefer it for completeness, because what if it knocks all my board members off? I would rather know that at time of completeness, because that board member wouldn't be voting on the, any waivers associated with the application.
They don't have to do the mailing, they just have to tell us the list.
All right,
Correct.
okay.
The
That's
mailing
something
is done
I feel
after they make
isn't,
the application.
Yeah, 'cause I think it's the only way for the board chair to know if any member had, or the members have to recuse themselves.
Well, I think they know, basically, I think that Mr. Webster, he does plumbing work, and he also, friends with,
Yeah, but
everybody
that's
knows
different
who
than
they
a
have to
200
recuse
list.
themselves with. That was my thing.
That's just a conflict, that's, not
Yeah.
necessarily on the 200-foot list.
Right. Okay, and that's all, I think it's a very complete list, I think it's good,
Okay.
just that's my comments.
All right, thanks, Karen. As far as comments from Liz, so I'll go back to Liz, but I just want to read an email that I got from her back in September of last year. She said, "Hi, Mike, I have no real concerns about the draft checklist. They look good to me, and if Bill Ryden is okay with them, I'm okay." That was her feedback. So what I'll do is I'll go back to her again, and I'll tell her about this discussion, and I'll ask her if she's got any questions.
Well, when
You know.
this comes back to us for another review, then it should go to Liz and everybody else. I mean, this will definitely come back to us for review before it goes for a, ordinance.
Correct, and I want to talk about that, because I need, if nobody else needs it, I need clarity on how we're going to do that.
Absolutely,
Okay, so we'll talk
absolutely.
about that, but I don't, I agree with you, I don't disagree.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, fair enough. The next one is attach a copy of the proposed legal notice. Do we do that today?
Yes,
We do, yeah,
yeah.
okay. So,
Whatever you like.
But that's important, because they could miss something in their notice.
And,
Okay.
and it's also for our attorney to review and make sure that all the variances or the waivers or what are included in there.
Well, typically it changes, I think that was
Right.
one of the reasons why I left it out here. Because the draft they made, they throw something together, what they think they're gonna need, when we get there, we say, oh, you need a variance for this, you need a waiver for that, and then they have to review the notice, so.
But we have to have a starting point.
That's like I said, that whatever the board likes, we'll go.
all right, number 8,
Is that a
certification.
yes or a no?
I would say that's a yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Certification that applicant is owner or has given consent to applicant to file on owner's behalf. Is that an issue?
So we have on the application, we ask for the applicant's name and address and information, and the owner's name and address, et cetera, and then both have to sign the
Have to sign.
application at the end.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'm not sure what you mean by certification. The signature is, I guess, is their sign off. I'll ask Mr. Brewer.
Well, I think that's exactly, it. The certification of the applicant, they can all say, I'm the owner, and they're good. Or, is owner or has given consent to the applicant to file on owner's behalf. That would be the second one, provision where the owner signs off. So I think they're both there, since,
They're all here, yeah.
Yes.
And both signed.
Yes.
So they.
Well, they aren't on the new form,
Yes,
they were on the old form.
Yeah, I have the new form here, I guess everybody does. Application for subdivision site plan. Item 1 is the applicant's name and all their various information. Item 2 is the owner's name and all their information. And then the final page is some statements that they agreed to, and then they sign, both sign.
they're both signed.
Yeah, no, but wait a minute, and those are not notarized either.
Well, we're gonna make them notarized. You
We're
said,
going to make them notarized.
well, that was one of the first items we
Correct.
agreed to.
Correct.
So that's essentially takes care of your certification concerns, I
Well,
would think.
It doesn't say that the applicant, I think it should be worded the way it used to be, okay? And I like the fact that, that you have included in there that the sum's not expended in the review. I think that's great, because it covers a whole variety of things. But I think if we go back to the other way that it used to be, in the original form, and I have so many papers here, I can't tell you, but, the
I don't think
original
there's much
form, there were a
difference.
couple places to be signed. And it was owner applicant type of thing.
Yeah.
It had here, that I'm the owner of the property and that kind of thing, okay? Or that it could be you're acting on behalf of the applicant.
All right, so
I'll
let's-
ask Mr. Brewer, when we have them, they provide all that information on both sides. Does that satisfy their obligation?
I'm not reading in front of me, I'll read it and make sure it satisfies this. I don't have it in front of me, I don't have that.
And it's the owner's consent to make application, not necessarily that the applicant is not acting on behalf of the owner.
There has to be some sort of consent.
Consent, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And is this back to notary, what's required, notary, witness, or
No,
attestation?
typically they've been notarized, which attorneys, when there's an attorney involved, their office does it.
Right.
But no, typically it's been, you have to have it notarized.
And Karen is a notary, so that's not a problem for anybody.
Yeah, I can know that. But also, I think like if it's an attorney, they don't have to start notarized.
Yeah,
Well, an
their office
attorney is a
does it.
notary, so.
Yeah, but it's not, it
I mean,
doesn't, you know.
the reason I think it's beneficial is that in rental situations or other things, it's too easy because people let that one go. You know, you just read it, get signed, that a lessee is gonna just sign off on both, and then it just goes through, and the person hasn't really done it. You gotta notarize that, prove who they are, again, and that's in the very rare instances, but it avoids that. That's why.
Yeah, the owner might not know.
Exactly, oh yeah, definitely.
So, Mr. Ryden, can you send that information
And I'll
to
talk to you.
Mr. Brewer to review? You okay with that?
Of course.
Yeah. Or you can say no.
Anybody can have anything they want?
I'm in.
Okay, number 9, brief explanation of application/hearing process.
If we come to that in the.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 10, location, size, and nature of all existing and proposed right-of-way easements and other lands, if any, to be dedicated to the borough for others.
Just the others, right?
Okay, we'll add that on.
Wherever public sewer, we talked about that.
So let me just follow up on that. So originally we had sewer, yes or no, water, yes or no. And Ms. McCluskey asked if we would redefine that as public sewer and public water, yes or no.
No,
And we
what
did.
I'm saying is they're certifying that it is connected to the public water and public sewer.
Well, when they check that, I guess that's their certification, and they sign off and they notarize the application, that's what they're doing.
Well, we don't wanna give them a choice.
They're not asking for a choice, we're just asking we wanna know if it's served by public water or served by public sewer. I'm not
But it
sure I
has to
see
be.
the significance of it.
Yeah, well, moving forward, I'm just thinking out, moving forward, they would have to hook up. If
Yeah.
they were, they would
Right.
have to hook up to
So,
public sewer.
You know, and I'm not sure what form of certification you use, any different than any other statement they make on here, you don't ask for certification of each statement.
Okay, just that the property is hooked up, not a yes or no, the property is hooked up to
All right, we can add a little few words in there.
public water and public sewer.
Okay.
All right, so 11 will reword it, we'll look at the wording. Okay. Number 12 is landscape plan.
Yeah, that's in the checklist.
So 13, I just have just one other comment to piggyback on that, is the size of the plans, the scale, rather.
Okay, yeah, that's covered on
So
the front end of the application.
and that's the larger scale then?
Yeah, we asked for 3 24 by 36 plans, that's a standard engineer plan, 3 foot wide, 2 foot high.
But you're talking about the scale.
The scale, like
1
1/8.
inch equals
Well, we're not specifying the scale.
Yeah, we did.
Excuse me, can I just say that I've been asking, like sometimes they'll ask if they can give smaller plans, okay? I asked for 4 large ones, okay, so each,
We're talking about the
professional-
scale, Karen.
Oh, okay.
Just
but-
the scale of.
but
One
he's
inch
talking about how
equals-
many copies, I'm just saying I prefer it to be 4. So there's a copy in the office.
Okay, do you have a preference?
So what is normal, like, because we ran into a problem with a couple of them, and I don't remember the scale, but so I guess a 16th would be, I don't remember.
1 inch equals 30 feet or 50 feet, yeah.
The reason you ask for scale is, you know, somebody be cute and come in with a tiny scale, and, you know, you can't read anything. Obviously, we would reject that and have good grounds to. If we can't read a plan, then we can't rule on it, but we'll put a scale range in here, okay?
And it is in here somewhere,
It
and I'm
is.
not sure whether
I don't think it is. Not on the new stuff.
scale shall equal 50 feet to the inch, except for 1 acre or less, the scale shall be 20 feet to the inch.
Yeah, we have to be a little flexible on that, you know, it depends on the configuration of the plan, so we'll put a couple of ranges in there.
Okay, yeah.
Okay?
Number 14, location, type, size of electric, telephone, cable television, and gas mains. And,
Yeah, so I see Sue's, she wants us to point out water mains, we do, that's in a different item,
Okay,
that's, I'm trying to find it here now. A17 on the subdivision site plan, subdivision checklist is water lines, sewer line, A17.
I want to go back to scale, so I'm a little slow in the uptake here. So what we really, I think what should be in the application is requiring all documents to be at a standard scale, appropriate, a standard scale that shows information legibly appropriate for the size of the parcel or building. Because so the concept of scale is back from the old days when everybody drew by hand and you had to set it at the very beginning, right?
but
And then-
that's just too broad, it doesn't tell anybody what they have to do.
But not, it does. So if you're working on the M&M project and you put an engineering document scale, it's in a computer model and you can print it at 1 is equal to 100, you can plot
Except,
it.
Dave, that's exactly where we had the problem. They were allowed to do a smaller scale, and there were things that were missed there.
We'll set a minimum, Dave's in the business, he's the architect,
Right.
but
Yeah, and nobody picked it up except for me. Okay?
Yeah, that was
Yeah, so I
point of
will,
contention there with that.
it was intentional, yeah. So I think we should specify the scale, and if they wanna change it and we agree, we can always do that. Right?
I told you we're gonna put it in.
Yeah, good.
So, Dave, what was your recommendation as a professional
Doesn't
for the
matter.
scale?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, okay.
And then the last one I had, this is just a suggestion, if you don't think it's appropriate, but I think it might be helpful if, when they do it, they can list who their, who all their professionals are.
Understood, we asked for the engineer's name, surveyor, and the attorney, but, you know, I don't know that an applicant wouldn't even know all of that at the time he files an
Yeah.
application.
Yeah.
And so that would be cumbersome, I think, and it doesn't, I don't think it advances our position either to know that at the point. And so,
I was gonna say, what's the benefit of
yeah,
having that?
I don't, and we,
Just,
just information, but I don't think it really does anything to.
It would make, it could possibly change by the
Yeah.
public hearing and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. too.
Yeah, okay, we don't need that then.
okay. Let's quickly go down to Andrew Wolf's email. Number one is just, it's a statement.
Can I just make one more comment?
Sure.
Excuse me. I really like the way you did these charts on there. I think that really is helpful for us. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So number 2 on Mr. Wolf's email says, it would be helpful to see the accompanying cover sheet. Will it include definitions and basic instructions? I do think we need them. I think we kind of
That all
covered
covered
that.
in
Yeah.
our
Correct.
quote-unquote glossary discussion.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Okay. Too concise, too-page process map. I believe, yeah, I think 3 we did cover as well. Consider cross-referencing the application to the municipal code. I don't know how.
Where you end, right?
Yeah.
Maybe just a reference that it's, you know, all that's online, like, what is it, Code 360 or whatever that document is online, you can steer people to that on the website.
That would be in that, what we're calling the instruction or
Yeah, it's a
glossary sheet or
Yeah.
all that stuff, like that's the attachment.
So that's on
Yeah.
the website.
I think we took sort of 5 with the notaries and all that, would be,
Number 5.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I think, yeah, we captured that. And then number 6, this is commercial applications. A lot of this, I think, would be in testimony. And I think Mr. Schultz and I, we talked about this. So I don't think this is necessarily part of.
This is testimony on, you need on the record of the hearing.
Correct.
The completeness, and I know I've beat this up a few different times, the completeness is not the adjudication of the matter, of the application. It's just to
Right.
get it to.
To get it to, right.
And it should stay clean like that. We don't.
A bunch of binary things, yes
That's
or no,
right.
yes or no, yes or no.
We don't need,
Once you get all the
we
yeses.
don't wanna be prejudiced and all, you know, until we get to the, you know, before we get to
Agreed. Agreed.
the hearing.
Sorry.
Okay, so,
I have questions about this,
Yep.
because, when I was doing my research on this, I was looking up a bunch of towns and how they did their packets. And in particular, in Andrew's comments on number 6, were the same comments I had submitted in the beginning about lighting and signage plans, elevation and floor plans. There was a couple of them here, so I wanna just understand why we're saying that should not be part of the
Oh,
application.
It is, we're getting those lighting plans, we're getting,
I think,
but things like public open space and just, you know, hazardous materials, that all comes out of, you know, we don't need to know that as a completeness. Again, I have to, you know, focus real narrowly on the.
maybe I missed some of them, because some of
This is
them,
just for completeness of the application.
no, I know, but I had lighting and signage plans, elevation and floor plans, and maybe I missed it, because now my papers are all
They're all.
commingled, so
we're
I'm not
asked-
sure
we
which
asked
is
for
the
all.
latest
Yes, for all.
pile I have in front of me, and those kinds of things. I just wanna make sure that those are in there, because now I'm not.
And you can get
Clear.
anything, you can ask for anything you want once the hearing opens, anything you want, or you think is relevant. Andy, that.
Agree with that, absolutely agree. This only gets them to day one.
All right, so
So I know we spoke about this earlier, I'm sorry, you have something?
No.
I do not. So just, I know we spoke about this earlier, and having the professionals at the completeness hearing and actually having them come into the board, is that remaining the same?
well, that's, if you're asking me.
No, I'm asking
That's-
the committee, I think.
That's procedure, that's the board's prerogative, you can do that any way you like, there's nothing prescribed, and I'm looking at Andy here, there's nothing prescribed in the land use law.
No, I think it would only be if they're requesting a waiver, then it's a good practice, and you might wanna put that request waiver, you need to either have the professionals at the completeness hearing or not.
But who you
Because I
put-
think, you know, just even the past 2 of them, right, and I know that from what I recall, there was talk about not, you know, you guys just reviewing the completeness and not having them, the applicant in here. I'm talking for the planning board anyway, but there is a lot of dialogue that happens in these completeness hearings, right, and questions that do come up from board
You're-
members. So I
you're-
think it's important to,
You're right, and that's when we hear the waivers. We need to have the applicant here to tell us why they want the waiver. But just say, I haven't had one yet since I've been sitting here, where the applicant 100% complete. And if, say that's the case, and 100%, I write a memo to the board, say, this is all complete, ready to be heard. I don't think you need to, you can say, okay, we agree to that at the hearing, but you don't need anybody to tell you anything, because you already know.
I think it should be a practice thing where they're instructed that if they want a waiver, then they have to. Because technically, the checklist in the application is supposed to be it's supposed to be set up, so it's a set piece of information, limited to finite terms. They can submit it and they know they're complete. If they ask for waivers, then it'll be a practice.
Then they have to come.
But that the presence, and this is like a logical thing, the presence of a professional to talk about whether you're complete isn't really something on the completeness. It should be a practice. If they want a waiver, they got it, they have to show up their professionals and explain why.
so is that standard, or is that something that we should, add to this?
I think it'd be a good thing to put on the instructions that you're talking about putting up, that if their applicants requesting a waiver,
And it could be 1 or 100,
yep, any waivers, you gotta have your professionals to explain.
appear before the board.
The appropriate professional appear before.
On the appropriate professional. 'Cause we
Appropriate
have-
professional.
Right.
So we have
Because if
a
it's a legal
simple,
thing,
right,
I've
simple
noticed.
tiny front porch, they're 8 square feet over on a residential.
Yep.
And there's a waiver request for wetland certification. Engineer says that there's no, I recommend that this waiver be granted, there's no wetlands within 500 miles. There's no need for Liz to come to that. On a D variance, when it's the heaviest lift that an applicant can make, and there's waivers on that application, planner and engineer needs to go through this. So it's the appropriate professional.
And
You
we
talking
had
about the
one where,
applicant's professional or the board's professional? You're talking about the board's professional? Yeah,
For-
I think,
for-
I
We're
think
talking about
Andy
the
was talking
applicant to
about something.
explain
like
the
that.
applicant the waiver.
Even if it is.
No, I think, again,
This really should be
the
board by
professionals are
board.
often here because they do those completeness at the meetings anyway, so they're typically here. But I think we've also run into one time, 2 times, people, applicants have said, all right, we'll do it, but could we do, okay, we'll make the
Right.
changes, but we could just do completeness and the regular the same day, and I promise we'll get it done. If you had the professionals here,
Right.
there's less of a risk of that happening.
yeah, and I mean, like, there was a waiver they requested on the property on Mountain Way, steep slopes. I mean, come on. Anybody that drove by that property knows there's no steep slopes there, no question, so, yeah.
So it varies with the
Depends.
application.
But in the instructions and
that
the
process-
explanation, I think that'd be a good place to put it.
Yeah,
I mean, that part of the process, I think, has run pretty well, right?
I agree, yeah.
So I think it was just a matter of the 57 pages of application that we distilled down to a more manageable list of things, so. That
That
combined
was
with-
just my concern that may have changed or gone by the wayside or what have you, but I think it's very important.
Yeah, no, and this doesn't set up any policy or practice of the board, that's the board and chair's, prerogative, however you wanna handle it.
Yeah, just so, I'm okay
We're not,
with the,
we're not getting into
instruction
policy and
sheet or
practice.
whatever,
Mhm.
yeah.
We'll do that. Okay.
And I think so how do you handle it, if it's something silly, okay, steep slope in a desert, or, wetlands in a desert, whatever. I mean, how do you
Well,
handle that?
I was simply saying in my report, that they, steep slope waiver requested, I recommend it, right? But I'm not gonna provide like a narrative on why.
So that's what I'm saying, so you always do that, recommend or.
Well,
you know,
not
or it's a-
always.
Or it's a board's decision, what have you,
Right.
right? You have that on there. But what brings that person in here? So any waiver, is it any waiver?
I think so.
Anyway,
I think so,
That's-
because you never know the board,
Correct.
who's gonna have a question.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
Mr. Brewer, correct me if I'm wrong, but the planning board is the only one that can vote on the waivers. The professionals can't determine
No.
if waivers are good enough, right?
No,
Professionals recommend, board acts.
Correct, right. So if there's any waiver at any point, the board has to take action. If there's any waiver recommended or asked for, the board has to take action. So it has to.
Absolutely.
What I was trying to clarify is, it's any waiver, no matter what.
Right.
Even it's a waiver in a desert for wetlands, no
Right.
matter what that is, they're coming here. That's just that's why I'm asking the
I would
professionals.
think that's a good practice.
So we don't do that on the Board of Adjustment, on the small residential stuff. We, like, the small residential, the homeowner puts it in, and maybe 3 or 4 months later shows up for the hearing.
Well, I would have to say, Dave, the chair of each board can make those,
Right.
that's how you run your board, that's how you run your.
Because often, I mean, we do have those
But that
waivers,
doesn't change
small or
anything,
whatever,
it doesn't
the board
change
does have
anything.
questions.
Yeah, so
you know.
it's not on the checklist.
Right.
So it's not, you don't, the zoning board won't need it for them to be deemed complete. But the planning board will said, if you're looking for a waiver and you come into the planning board, add that.
You can handle that
Add that waiver.
as your own policy, Dave.
I mean, would it be beneficial to make it, and if this is, you know, not right to tell me, I mean, a highly encouraged suggestion, hey, if you're requesting any waivers, bring a professional. If you feel like you can argue it yourself, great, but we have the right to then say no, and we don't have enough
Well, they're not a
information.
professional.
Yeah.
I mean, no, but to say, my yard is not a steep slope, I'm on mountain way, you know, like.
Sometimes they actually are.
Drive by, you know, right?
I'm just saying, you know, I mean, something like that, it seems a lot to bring in a
Well, that's
professional,
on the
but put it on them, you know,
Well,
put the words out there.
it is on them. If
Right.
they don't show up with a professional, then the board's not gonna grant the waiver.
So, and I think all I'm saying is disclose that really clearly in our, you know,
Instructions.
guidebook,
In the
instructions, and then we're in the clear, you know?
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, I have one other comment. So the current packet, on the website, it says to contact the secretary for information. Is that what you guys were thinking going forward? Is there a reason why we can't have the whole packet on the website?
I think you can, but you're still gonna have questions. If there's a question, you should refer
Yeah.
to somebody, right? So,
But you know, if someone's, you know,
Everybody has-
Saturday
You
afternoon.
can have
they're
everything there and somebody's still gonna, why do I do it?
Right.
Yeah, I'm just
Where's the
saying.
link? I can't find the link.
Yeah, right.
True, but I'm just saying, you know,
That's a
if you're a
different-
homeowner or something and it's a Saturday or it's a Sunday, and you're trying to look for information, might be helpful to have it out there. It's not to saying it's gonna change any of the questions that they're gonna have, but I think it might be helpful
yeah,
to
I think
have
if
it.
they put E-code on there, right, where they can reference that kind of stuff, I would certainly put a number to
Well, all these documents are gonna be on the website, hopefully we wanna do.
Yeah.
fill the
What's what I'm
form.
saying, they're not there now.
What's not there?
These documents aren't, it says for, let's see.
You mean,
Currently, it says to contact the secretary for the information. So Karen, you have to give
I
everybody
can
the.
do the application, but I believe within the land development ordinance, the checklists are in there, aren't they? They used to
Yes,
be.
they are. They're
So
in.
everything is online, and
Okay,
that land
it's not
development.
really clear about where.
The
to get them.
application itself is not online.
Right.
Right.
The
Checklist.
the checklists are.
Okay, I was probably
But
looking
see,
in the wrong
also,
spot.
you have to remember, they definitely have to go, maybe this is gonna change. They have to go to the zoning officer to go to the board. That's how it's set up now, unless you're changing that.
well, we're not changing any of those, any
Okay,
of the
so what
office
Mary Ann is
policies here,
saying,
it's just the
they have
papers.
to call, yes. And like, there'll be sometimes people will call, and talk to Don Salerno, I will scan in the application to them. It's not that they'll get it online that way. That's what I'm saying.
I think with the instruction sheet and some of those instructions and direct them to certain places, I think that will alleviate some of the calls into her office.
I mean,
Getting
this is,
people used to that, so.
if this is something we're posting online, you could include a link in the document.
Correct.
That leads to it, right?
That's
Correct.
Yeah, and it, yeah,
Our goal,
That's right.
right, Mr. Houston, our goal is to get like fillable PDF
Correct.
form.
yep, fillable PDFs online, so we can just run through and,
So once we
Check the
get the
boxes.
final form set, everybody's agreed on, then we'll
Right.
work on that.
record.
Right.
I mean, Karen, you remember years ago when people would change the document and eliminate parts of it. Do you
Yes,
recall?
I know exactly who did it, and it was horrible. It was a total horrible thing. They took the application, and they made it look exactly like the application, and they changed it. They changed numbers and everything.
To eliminate certain
And
requirements.
it eliminated things. It was very, very bad.
Yeah, I think we're beyond that now.
Right.
Okay.
And just on completeness, so back to completeness, so that, I don't know if the planning board has bylaws, but the recently updated bylaws, the Board of Adjustment have the process on completeness, so, it's, if there's waivers requested to any item, the board shall at its next ensuing regular or special meeting not held more than 45 days from date of submission, decide whether to grant or deny the waiver. Waivers requested, the applicant shall be notified promptly, so it doesn't require them to come. But I'd say more times than not, we don't need them on the small residential stuff. And if it's typically, and maybe even without exception, on the, application for completeness for non-residential, if the attorney is required, and they usually show up. So the attorney might be able to speak to it, not the professional, as to completeness only.
So I think again, you can have different,
Hmm?
different bylaws for the different boards.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
That doesn't change the forms though.
Right, that's what I'm
How
saying,
you-
that's
how
what I'm
you
saying, the
adjudicate, yeah.
form shouldn't, yeah, the form shouldn't have overlap.
So, all right.
Yeah, I personally don't know if our bylaws have that. I'm not even sure I have the right copy of the bylaws, so. Okay, I made a note of that.
Another homework.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so, can we, I wanna commit to having the committee review what we talked about tonight and have input back by April 3rd, which is about 3 weeks from today, roughly.
Yep.
Okay, and then the planning board, once we get that information back, I'd like to get comments again back from the board by about April 13th, so it's about 10 days. And then at our planning board meeting in April, we can rehash or review what we've just talked about here and making sure that it's been translated into the documents that we expect. Is that-
Or can we redline these documents going forward now, since we're just refining some of it, because it'd be a lot easier to track it now, based on the feedback that we have. I think we have a good working document, and these changes, if we could redline them, it would be so much
We
easier.
could, what we're talking about tonight, we can highlight or redline.
Yeah.
That should be.
Yeah, from the
that
going
should be-
forward.
That's what everybody's going off of now anyway.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
Okay, so April 3rd, committee gets the updates, planning board gets comments back by April 13th, and then the planning board will discuss again on 4/20, hopefully for what might be the final time. We'll see.
Any part next week, you can cover all this on Board of Adjustment? I'm serious.
Sure.
Highlight the conversation tonight.
Okay. And then, if I'm not mistaken, once this gets to the point where Mr. Houston takes this back to council, that's considered first read, correct? And then that would come back to us anyway. No?
Even after the review?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, for review,
Okay.
right?
Oh,
So,
it's
so,
already been reviewed
For
and sent by
consistency.
council.
well, no, it has, but I'm just,
Consistency review.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, it doesn't really change the regulation,
change that.
it doesn't change the regulate, it's not, it doesn't regulate land. It actually might not.
It wouldn't have
Yeah,
to.
yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
regulate land.
Okay.
Still have to do 2 readings,
Okay.
but it's an ordinance, but it has to be.
But
by
it's
ordinance.
just an amendment to an existing ordinance.
Yeah, and it doesn't regulate the land, it regulates the application for doing something, so
So we-
I don't think it comes back.
Okay, good.
and is that regardless of whether the council has comments or not? Because during the first
If
read,
there's
the council.
conflicts, then that'll change everything, right? So.
Well, obviously,
Well, no,
Mr.
the
Houston.
council could shove it down your throat, not that they don't to, they don't actually have to listen.
Right.
They want to, and it'd be a silly thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that if they decided to change it, they would probably necessarily send it back, because they're not trying to, they are listening to you.
Right, that's
and
what I
they
mean, that
want
would
that.
change everything.
Because keep in mind, the council hasn't seen this officially at all. So after this is done, it goes to the council has an opportunity to review it and provide their own comments.
It may not even be introduced until they get the comment.
But
They may be okay with it, and it gets introduced, they may not even introduce it, because they have other comments, so.
Okay.
After it comes
That's-
here, and you
yeah.
guys, and this board okays it, Bill will, pass it out, distribute it out to the council, and see if there's any other changes before it's introduced. We're not gonna introduce and then amend it in introduction and all that stuff. So-
Yeah, makes sense, okay. Okay. Mr. Schultz, thank you very much.
Motion to go on
Appreciate-
Yankees Roadshow.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yes.
Dave. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
That's myself, okay?
Turn the rain off, please, you can walk home driving.
Okay, I'll close that portion of the agenda now. New business? Does anybody have any new business tonight?
Dave?
Bye.
No new business? Okay. Our last item on the agenda tonight is our executive session. We have one topic tonight, and at this point I'll have Mr. Brewer read the resolution.
Do you need me for the closed session?
No.
I'll go around and read it.
Yeah.
Good night, sir.
Resolution
Bill.
resolution authorizing closed session pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Be it resolved by the Morris Plains Planning Board in the County of Morris and State of New Jersey on the 16th day of March, 2026 as follows.